So right now, we've already done all the pieces. We know the pieces. We know what we got to talk about. We're going to be talking to this person. You know he's walking into a Saturn opposition. He's going to be frustrated. You know there's some temptations with Neptune coming up. And he's not sure, he's haunted by, he's not sure what he should do. He's either guilt-ridden or smothered or projecting or trying to escape. You know, Neptune's coming up for 4 years, and you're going to have to try and hold him onto a steady Saturn pattern and not let him mess up too much from the Neptune. You have to figure out how it's working first, and that's in your consultation. So this one is just your progress chart. It's just the progressions for the person, but it puts all the progressions in sequence across the life, so it's very useful. But it gives you the progressions to the sun, progress moon, and not only the year, it puts the age that it's happening, which is nice. Then it tells you the house that the moon is moving through. It's the progressed aspects. Then it gives you progressed sun aspects, then the progressed Mercury aspects. These are just the conjunction, square, opposition, sextile, trine. It just gives the main 7, the Ptolemaic aspects. Then it gives you progressed Mercury and your progressed Venus. Okay, so you can look at you can see whether Mercury's gone direct or Venus gone direct, or when you can see this, and that's useful to have these things all together like this. The moon, and on the far right it gives the progress, and you can see like on the one side when it's the progress to the natal. So when you have the moon opposed to the sun, moon, it's not a full moon, or moon opposed to the sun, it's not a full moon. That's to your natal chart. In this progress, you can see the moon phases. You can see I highlighted one here. There's the moon square the sun, so that was the waxing half moon phase. Then it's building up to the full moon phase here, so he's in this gibbous phase now. So this allows you to mark. We had the transit one, but this takes you can put the transit one beside this. There's the transit, 2 things. Saturn's past the IC, it's opposing the sun. Okay, and here's the 2018-19, down here. We can see the progressed sun went into Virgo, just about the time that Saturn hit the IC. And even a few years before that, his progressed sun squared Neptune. So he was in a lot of confusions for that would have been 3 or 4 years in there, from 2012 to 2016. So the Neptune's lifting. I think that's desperation, dedication, or to hold the kids together, whatever. But then it squared the Venus. In 2016, the sun went into Virgo. It's squaring the Mars coming up. The sun squaring Mars. Okay, that's the main progressed aspect coming up. That's an intensity. That's kind of an anger and impatience, extra energy and attitude to that. The shifting is coming up in the progressions. So I use this one. There's one more that I use. So the Saturn cycle, I usually like to draw out the graph because it's useful, but you can run it like this if you have to. And then you can see them working together. Once you got that, the Saturn's the anchor, then you're watching the interchanges inside of this. So, and you actually see the moon phases on the outside. And with this one, if you look back, we'll see, did Mercury have to go retrograde in his life? No, Mercury's been direct the whole time. Venus has been direct. Direct. Let's see, does it go? Yeah, he won't get Mercury or Venus going retrograde in his lifetime. This is going straight forward. Okay, so that's good to know. There's not the turnaround. That's a big change. That sets a different type of path up than someone that's going to have the Mercury retrograde or Venus retrograde. So you don't know what it was, but you know from working with this, these are big shifts that last a long time, and he's not having them. But he has these tests going on, and really it's about action about what he's doing now with the Mars. His Mars is conjunct Neptune, so the sun squared Neptune, sun squared Mars. These 2 things are tied to each other around that aspect in his natal chart, the Mars Neptune in the 3rd house. Wanting to study, wanting to be teaching, having to work at other things, going on doing this. And in the middle, Mercury was squaring Mercury, again, showing these classes. So there's his progressions. But it's not giving you the progressions for Mars, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune. It doesn't do that. They're considered too far out by most people. And in this case, they're very valuable. So Here's this other one, the other report that I do. With these sleep reports, you can do pretty good with doing someone's chart. And I usually do them for the lifetime when I do them, so that once you've done them, you can always pick them up and you don't have to redo them. So here we go. This is 2 years on a page, and this is the transits. Okay, so here we go. This is like your 8-year graph. It puts the outer Saturn out. It puts the conjunction squares and oppositions between the outer planets. We only look with the outer planets to the inner planets, like Uranus to Saturn, Neptune to Saturn, Pluto to Saturn, and to the inner planets. We don't look at the Saturn's, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. We don't count those. Those are social factors. So he puts them all in here. So you have to still go through it and work it to see which ones are direct personal factors. So when I look at this 8-year graph, see the whole of 2018, there was nothing. In 2017, you can see Saturn squared the moon, it squared Uranus, squared Jupiter. I don't highlight those, squared Mercury. Those are going to be personally noticeable. Saturn squared Pluto, Saturn squared Pluto, Saturn squared Mercury. That one could be highlighted. I didn't go back further, but I highlight them so that I don't get disturbed or distracted by the other aspects that aren't so personal and aren't so vital, that are happening to everybody. So this is, it's editing out what you don't need to know so you can concentrate on the things that are really relevant. So then starting 2019, you had the Saturn opposed the Sun, Neptune square the Moon, Neptune square the midheaven, then Neptune square the midheaven. Now, again, it only shows one Saturn opposed the Sun. This is the problem that happens with computers and with these reports. So there are weak spots in these. You can use them, but you still need to back them up with some other calculations. So usually the 2-year graph they do will take care of all immediate things, but you can do an 8-year printout of an 8-year graph, 8 or 10 years for the outer planets, and get this, because what happens is Saturn goes forward, goes past this, but in August, September, October, we saw Saturn was opposing the moon on our 8-year graph. Well, what happens? It gets within 1 degree, it went back, it goes within 1 degree, and then it comes back. So it's still 3 months within 1 degree, but because it didn't make the exact conjunction, it's not showing on the printout. This is a flaw in the computer programming, but if you put everything within a degree, which we can do, you end up with so much information it's hard to work with. So you just have to double check to make sure there's not another Saturn phase in this. And I do this with like I did the 2-year printout, I do this with an 8-year printout. So this second thing here gives the Sabian symbols for each degree for the progressed sun going through. And I don't use them, I don't like them. I use the I Ching and the lines of the I Ching being active or passive. I find them much more useful. If you're white, Anglo-Saxon, colonial, Christian, these symbols will probably be relevant for you. Okay, and but some people love them. It's a certain way of getting into the meaning of degrees. But as you have the meaning of the degrees, it'll give you a line of a hexagram too that we're using, and you can go back and see that, or the subpentan. You can see things that by degree. It doesn't hurt to have the degree divisions there. Just if I had choice. See, he has these reports, he can't edit out things. So like with Saturn, I couldn't make just the Saturn to Saturn, Saturn to the Sun, Saturn to the angles. I had to put all of them. You have to have all of them in. Same way with this, it puts things in, but it doesn't calculate the Saturn opposition to Sun over its last 3 months, which is really pivotal and important because it's tied into the Neptune squaring the midheaven and the Saturn opposed the Sun. He's having trouble dealing with something, whether it's staying at work or whatever, or getting the kids to go to school. It's hard to know, but that was really right through that time period. It still was within a degree, so it's still critical territory. It just didn't hit the exact, but it's exact enough. Like it's like the opposition would be something like you took in relation. You walk home and you find your husband or wife in bed getting it on, in the act of getting it on with someone else. So that's catching them in the conjunction. But suppose you walk in and they're not doing it, but they still got all their clothes off and lie in bed, but they're not doing it. They're still in bed. They're still within the orb of danger. It's still got your attention. So you can't ignore it. So like it's a blind spot in the report. You can't just rely. You still have to do a printout. And I'll show you the printout. Where are we here? I don't have it. Okay, I don't have it that one with me, so I'll just make it. Just be a second. So this is really good layout because it's easy to work with. It gives the dates, the calendar, and or you can write notes in beside it. It's really useful. It's just sometimes you might have to write an extra aspect on it. So here we are. We got this one. We're going to go to the search. Comes up with the search. The first search comes up. We don't use that's just a standard thing. We're going to come in and we're going to that's October 8th. We're just going to make it for. Let's just take it to October 2015. Okay. We'll keep it from. I'll just put it from October 1st. Okay, there. And then we're going to go here. I have an 8-year. Do I have an 8? No, I have 8 years individually. Okay, so. Okay, I'll just take any one of these. We'll take the Saturn. Okay, here. Okay, so you can just do the Saturn and check each one, or once you have the printout, you can. Yeah. Okay, so this one shows the exact enter leave. So when we see January 1st, there's Saturn to post Saturn January 9th, 17th, 20th there, and then if we went to the 8th. It gets close and it leaves by October 12th. So there it is. It's entering and leaving without making the conjunction. But it's still 2 months that are critical that aren't written in on the report. So you'd have the report. You would just have this printout and you add it in. You just double check it and you see if there's anything to add in. Get used to doing this. So I work off these sheets more than I work off that, but I have the details and I just double check it there. But when I'm working with something, I like the organization here. I like how to talk to someone. The other one looks too complicated to talk to someone with. Okay, so the other way is if you want to get this, do everything, you go back and you got the time set, you go and edit the things, and we have it just set for Saturn, so you set it for Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Still for the personal planets. We've added the enter and leave. So that allows the 1 degree, and boom, it comes up, and we run it. And now it has not just Saturn, it has all the other planets, and gives us our 1 degree orbs. It gives us our 8-year graph, right? It's what we did to get the 8-year graph. And we can see the ones against that are missing on this. So your transit 8-year graph, this is just to replace, if you don't have time, it's still time consuming. There's no easy way. But I just wanted to show you this. Your 8-year graph will have this because you were watching it to see that, allowing for that 1 degree orb. Okay, but this one also puts all the progressions on the right, or most of the main progressions. Okay, there's the Sun square Mars. It shows you. And we're not going to work with this Saturn. I'm just going to put the Saturn down a bit. Here's the progress. So this was the progress, all the progress charts on the right. So there's the progressive Sun. It didn't show you in this one that the progressive Sun, when the progressive Sun went into Virgo, well, that's 2019. Yes, it would show that. It will show it back. If you went back, you would see it will show the progressive Sun going into Virgo.